When I was just 16 years old, and my sister, a mature 20-year-old, and I embarked on a thrilling cross-country road trip. Our travel companion for this adventure was our aunt, a free spirit with a love for the open road. It was late in the evening, but we were still wide awake and alert, thanks to a rejuvenating rest we had taken earlier in the day. The night sky stretched above us, adorned with countless stars, as we cruised along a scenic desert highway, surrounded by the vast, arid landscape of the American Southwest. Our car's fuel gauge was slowly creeping toward empty, and all of us needed a much-deserved restroom break. We hadn't seen any sign of civilization for miles, and just as we were beginning to wonder if we'd ever find a place to stop, the glow of neon lights emerged on the horizon. There, on the side of the highway, stood the only rest stop we had seen in the last 200 miles. As we pulled into the rest stop, the scene before us seemed like something out of a vintage postcard. An old-fashioned diner-style gas station, complete with a flickering neon sign and a row of vintage fuel pumps, greeted us. There was an undeniable sense of nostalgia in the air, as if time had stood still in this remote corner of the desert. We weren't the only ones seeking respite at this late hour. Parked at the fuel pumps was a weathered van filled with college-age kids on what appeared to be a spirited road trip. They were laughing and chatting, their voices carrying on the cool desert breeze. A few feet away, a small gray sedan was parked, with two young men standing beside it. However, as soon as we exited the car, an inexplicable feeling of unease washed over us. We had been on the road for several days, visiting numerous rest stops at night, and had never experienced anything quite like this before. It was as though the very atmosphere around us had grown heavy with an unspoken tension. My aunt and sister decided to head inside the diner to use the restroom and grab a quick snack, while I stayed behind in the car, trying to shake off the unsettling sensation that had settled upon me. As I sat there, I couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation from the group of teenagers at the gas station. They were talking about how they felt creeped out and frustrated, unable to get the gas pump to work properly. Despite their jovial demeanor moments ago, they now seemed eager to put some distance between themselves and the rest stop. While I was observing the teenagers, my attention was inexplicably drawn to the two men standing beside the gray sedan. They were unlike anyone we had ever encountered on our journey. What struck me as odd was not their appearance, but their complete lack of movement. They remained frozen in place, like statues carved from stone. Their faces bore no expression, and their eyes were locked in a vacant stare. It was as though they had become part of the landscape, seamlessly blending into the night. Minutes felt like hours as I continued to watch them, my unease growing with each passing moment. The two men didn't converse with each other, nor did they reach for their phones. They simply stood there, still as the desert sands that surrounded us. Just as my sister and aunt emerged from the diner, their faces etched with concern, the situation took a chilling turn. The two men, who had been motionless all this time, slowly turned their heads to look at us. It was a movement so deliberate that it sent shivers down my spine. Their bodies remained completely immobile, not a single muscle twitching, as if they were incapable of any other motion. What we saw next left us in a state of profound disbelief. Their eyes, once locked in a vacant stare, had transformed into something otherworldly. They were no longer eyes in the conventional sense. Instead, they were deep voids, abyssal pits that seemed to absorb every trace of light around them. Their eyes weren't merely dark, they were entirely empty, devoid of any discernible features. It was as though we were staring into an infinite, lightless void that defied all logic and explanation. The shock and terror that gripped us in that moment were palpable. We felt a primal fear, an instinctual urge to flee from whatever inexplicable force or entity we had stumbled upon. Without exchanging a word, we knew we had to leave that place, and we had to leave it quickly. My aunt practically jumped into the driver's seat, her hands trembling as she started the car's engine. We pulled away from the gas station, tires screeching against the pavement, leaving behind the bewildering scene that had unfolded before us. None of us dared to look back, and we didn't stop until we were well on our way to the next city, far from the eerie rest stop that had filled us with dread. As we drove through the night, our conversation revolved around the bizarre encounter we had just experienced. Each of us struggled to make sense of what we had witnessed, but none of our explanations could fully account for the eerie presence of those two men. We were haunted by the memory of their vacant, abyssal eyes, as though they were windows to a realm beyond human comprehension. The worst part of the entire experience was the unnerving aftermath. In the days that followed, we attempted to locate the rest stop on our maps, both digital and paper, but it was as if the place had vanished from existence. We knew precisely where it should have been on the highway, yet there was no trace of it on Google Maps or any of our road atlases. Even when we asked locals about the peculiar gas station on that particular stretch of road, we were met with only puzzled expressions. It was as though the rest stop had become a mirage, a fleeting and inexplicable apparition that defied all attempts at rational explanation. Despite our initial disbelief, we had no choice but to accept that we had experienced something beyond the realm of ordinary reality. Our journey continued, taking us to new destinations and adventures, but the enigmatic encounter at the desert rest stop remained etched in our memories, a lingering mystery that would forever leave us with a sense of unease and wonder. Years have passed since that fateful night, but the memory of those two men with their eyes as dark as the void still haunts us. We may never know the true nature of the inexplicable force that crossed our path that night, but one thing is certain, it was a chilling reminder that there are mysteries in this world that defy explanation, and that the open road can lead to encounters beyond the boundaries of our understanding.